unity, power, peace, and purpose. Black love, unity, power, peace, and purpose. I'm coming out of a deep sleep to the tune of an African drum beat. Modern day slavery is all mental. The new plantation is the penitentiary. My heart speaks the gospel of a criminal. I hear your words, but I never see no action. What I see is the upper middle classes totally disconnected with the masses. You dictate solutions from outside the front lines, where a large percentage of black children who came up in the last 2 decades suffer from post-traumatic stress disorder, witnessing bodies getting riddled with bullets every other day in street shootouts and drive-bys. The civil rights movement was a fight for social equality that I'm very grateful for, but now I feel it wasn't worth it. The masses are still suffering. We have separated as a people with no love, unity, focus, or purpose for each other. I'm ashamed of myself because I didn't become a man until I was 40. I wasn't a father to my sons and daughter. The illusion of westernized religion and culture contaminated my soul, had me walking backwards because everything is out of rhythm and sync with nature and cosmic order. So for the sake of righteousness, if you truly know what time it is, can you please look past the confines of religion and reach out to a lost brother or sister who has been misdirected and miseducated in conformity to systemic oppression that keeps us separated? Faith could be your greatest strength, or it could be your greatest weakness. One of the first slave ships that brought Africans to America was named the Jesus. We have a very brutal and cruel history of justified violence committed against us. In school, I learned about Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and a few others, but they told me nothing of the fact that I once had my own language, religion, and culture. We commit cultural suicide in order for white people to feel comfortable. Integration turned out to be a simulation by way of emulation and imitation of the status quo. Love is not an emotion, but a decision on how we act. The whole is equal to the sum of all parts and is greater than any of its parts. Supreme knowledge is knowledge of self, and without that knowledge as a whole, we'll never get back on track. I was miseducated before I became liberated through the attainment of knowledge. A rebirth of consciousness was brought about, a clear sense of wholeness, continuity, and purpose. The window through which I viewed reality was speckled with the dirt of ignorance. Key elements essential to the formal process of my education were omitted. Manipulation of images and information was systematically designed to control my thinking, which kept me in darkness, denying me the opportunity to make intelligent decisions. I found out through irrefutable evidence, it's a historical fact, that Africans were the first people on the planet, developing the earliest civilizations. We are at a critical juncture in the future development of black consciousness and its relationship to nature. There are many straight and narrow paths that people follow. All roads lead back to ancient Egypt. They chopped off the noses of many statues, including the Sphinx, in an attempt to hide the fact that the original Egyptians were black people. The first Greeks came to Egypt as students, but their descendants returned as conquerors, destroying cities, temples, and libraries, and claimed as their own all African knowledge. It is impossible for a race of black people to be produced from the cells of any other race on the planet. Mathematics, science, astrology, and philosophy didn't start with the Europeans. There's nothing new about solar energy. Black consciousness is rapidly reawakening after centuries of sleep from miseducation. The first and oldest conception of God in the history of mankind is the radiant day star we call the sun. Temples and kingdoms were already erected in Egypt centuries before the children of Israel became God's chosen people. They copied the original and then made copies of the copies of the generations between Noah and Abraham. All the Bible gives me is genealogies. The original Trinity is a fascinating story of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. Isis happens to be the first divine mother that has been imitated and replicated in many cultures. I don't have a problem with Mary, but learn your history and the fact that shrines of the Black Madonna can be found throughout Africa and all of Europe. I knew nothing of my ancestral traditions which existed before the advent of the European slave trade. I carry the name of a people who own my ancestors. I have citizenship in America, but Africa is in my DNA. Look at the way I sing, dance, walk, talk, play sports, and even give God praise. The sun is not cancerous to my skin. The most profound legacy of black people is the ability to survive, adapt, overcome, and recreate. In order to keep a slave, you must be made to believe that you're worthless. That's That's why it was essential for the slave master to erase every positive memory of Africa from the minds of black people and continuously degrade us. America emerged as an economic world power through the propagation of 400 years of free slave labor from my ancestors. Black is indeed beautiful, representing life and power since the beginning of creation. I'm just a speaker with the gift of articulation. The power's in the word. There is no religion higher than truth. I have no tolerance for religion, which has been so manipulated. I'm just passing information like the Reverend Jeremiah Wright. Facts of reality that religion won't teach you. My poetry is only perceptible to those who open the windows of their mind and wipe the dust out their eyes. You've been told a lie so long that you believe it to be the truth. That when you hear the truth, you believe it to be a lie because they teach you that any new information that contradicts your present belief is a trick of the enemy. But reality is that you've been brainwashed. Call me yin yang, negative and passive, positive and active. I spit what I spit, but ultimate reality is beyond any man's imagination. It is very difficult, or should I say totally impossible, to make sense of a world of apparent chaos and contradictions. But yet we still attempt to categorize and justify everything under the sun with thousands of interpretations of who and what God is. Every culture, including mine, which has been stripped from me, has an interpretation of the Creator along with an expression of that group's perspective. Through the commercialization and exploitation of my African nature within the black church, I'm constantly showing the uniqueness of my blackness. Black love, unity, power, peace, and purpose. Black love, unity, power, peace, and purpose.